the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner. Heat wave conditions once again on High Ash Farm near Norwich. Farmer Chris Skinner is our guide once again. It's another Countryside podcast and always a delight to be here, Chris, even though the sun is at 10 o'clock in the morning frying us.
It's relentless, Matthew. We're now in our third heat wave, and the farm, variable soil types here. We have clays, gravels, almost pure sand in places, and the pastures that are away from the farmstead itself. The farmstead's on the best soil on the farm, and as you move out to the perimeter of the farm, the soil gets lighter and sandier, and therefore it's quite drought prone, and that's exactly what's happened this year. And the pastures all around us and behind us are sort of a very pale, sort of beigey white almost. And the deceptive thing is the horses put on weight at this time of the year, and people say, oh, there's hardly any grass on the fields, and yet the horses are sort of bursting at the seams. And what happens is, it's exactly what happened here when we had a dairy herd here in 1976. Over the summer months, the milk yield kept going up and up and up and up. And the vet explained to me, as I was being rather dense, and said, it's dead grass. He said, no, they're eating hay in the field because the moisture content of the grass had evaporated away, but basically they were eating grass with all the nutrition that hay has in it. And because it's closely grazed, it's called everlasting spring, which is what your lawn is. You're stopping the grass going through its normal life cycle of growing up, producing seed, a seed head, and then the seed drops back on the ground. So I had to learn a very early lesson that drought doesn't always mean lack of nutrition in some of the crops. And we're standing by a 2-hectare portion of overwinter wildbird seed mix, lots of cereals in it, some blue in the background there, which is borage, and all along the edge here, quite a big strip of borage, although in places there's sunflowers to come through in about a week or two once they come up above the cereal crop. And everywhere we look, there's masses and masses of butterflies.
Aerial activity galore. A lot of whites, but
Yes.
a lot of other butterflies.
There are. And so I thought we'll start this week's podcast off with a sort of selection of summer butterflies that you're likely to see at this time of the year and what's important for them.
Can I ask you first about this one here, because that's particularly attractive?
Where are you? Oh, right. It is. It's
There's
attractive. It's a pair of them in a very demure way, and that's Britain's commonest butterfly, would you believe? You just found it like that, although it's not spectacular like the peacock and the brimstone and the painted ladies, perhaps. It's very demure, and it breeds on grass. It's sort of chocolatey brown with a very distinctive eye spot on the underside of the wings. So when the wings are folded up, you can see a very distinctive eye spot. And there are thousands on High Ash Farm, absolutely thousands and thousands of them. And then we're looking at across there at that's a small white flying about. One of the villains of the piece, if you grow cabbages in your garden, its larger cousin, the large white, is out and about on the wing. And there's a small white quite close to us now, just flying along. And they will lay their eggs on members of the cabbage family. And in this crop, there are lots of fodder radish and mustard, and that's one of their food plants. Now, I can also see something interesting just flown in, and it's not a butterfly, but it looked like one. There it goes. Oh, it just got attacked by bright red wings, and that's a 6-spot burnet moth, and another one there. Absolutely beautiful, look.
Brilliant colour, red.
Yes, yeah, red with 6 spots on the upper side.
Some
of
years
the wings.
we struggle to see these.
Yes.
But look straight away.
Yes, look at that. So initially you'd think another species of butterfly, but not so. It's a day-flying moth, and they're colonial, so they like a particular area, and they won't move far from that. They're quite lazy, really. So the thistles are also in flower here, all around us, and some of the larger butterfly species, the more exotic the species colour. I'm not sure what that one is flying in towards us. I think it's a small tortoiseshell, which is now quite scarce. If it stops a moment, it's really on the move. But when they're flying fast like that, they're actually looking for another one to mate with, and they really get a shift on.
Gives the impression of an orange
Yes,
colour.
yes. So it has right on the tips of the wings, there's a little black margin, and just on the inside of that margin is a beautiful row of blue dots all the way round the wing margin. So really lovely to see. And I can just see another meadow brown in front of us. We might get a better look at this one, just on the thistle there.
Oh, that's where we started, wasn't
yes,
it? Meadow brown, you can see the spot.
Yeah, you can see the false eye spot, and many of the butterfly species have those. It's a form of warning, particularly used by the peacock butterfly, which has this kind of mechanism in the winter. Remember, many of the butterfly species are winter hibernators. I can think of 3 to start off with. One would be the peacock, which we have lots of here. The other one would be the brimstone, and the third one, which hibernates over the winter, is that small tortoiseshell we just saw flying past us. And they all hibernate. Now, with the peacock, if it gets disturbed when it's hibernating, 6 months asleep. I quite fancy that idea, actually. They, when they open their wings, the little wings rub together, and you get a kind of hissing sound at the same time as 2 very large eyes on the upper surface of the wings, hence peacock, because they look like peacock bird tail feathers. And at the same time, these eyes appear, and it might be enough to put any birds off and stop it being predated.
Is this heat wave having an effect on the butterflies? Because normally good weather means more butterflies, but maybe there could be a problem.
Yes, there certainly is. About 3 to 4 weeks ago, we could only call it an eruption of butterflies coming in, and they were painted ladies. And it's actually quite a bad sign, because although the plants that they feed on as adults were in full flower, things like lavender, some of the herbs down in the Mediterranean region, and even the other side of the Mediterranean in North Africa, and they were the nectar from the plants wasn't being yielded at all. They were in flower, but there was no food, and they did a mass migration and came northwards to find cooler conditions. They're very powerful flyers. Oh, look, we're being serenaded by about a dozen small whites, and there's a few peacocks mixed in there. Suddenly a whole flock, I don't know what you'd call a gathering of butterflies, and they're all perched on the top of the thistles.
A flutter.
A flutter of butterflies. The eruption was absolutely spectacular, and many of those, they won't survive our winter. Their food plant is thistles, actually. Most of the butterflies here, apart from the whites here, their food plant is stinging nettles, and we're going to be visiting. That's a real treat for you. One of the patches of stinging nettles shortly on the farm, because I do something rather special. Earlier, about sort of 5-6 weeks ago, to encourage the butterflies to nest, lay their eggs, should I say, on the nettle patches.
Are these nettles in the shade?
Yeah, well, partially, yes.
Because we're not here at the moment, are we?
No, I can leave you in the car and shout, or in the truck, I should say.
Rats the dog has found some shade.
Yes, he has. He's been laying out in the heat of the day, just because I think some of his ancestors are Mexican, and the hotter the better as far as rats concerned. our demented terrier who accompanies us everywhere. Anyway, we're being sort of spoilt by the whole variety of butterflies just flying around here. It's quite a spectacular sight.
They love it here, don't they?
They absolutely do.
But sometimes the nectar sources might dry up at this time of year.
It might well happen this year. Things like thistles here. It's an agricultural pest, but we grow it, we allow it to grow in this overwinter wild bird seed mix because it's very deep rooted, and it's called creeping thistle, this particular one, and therefore it can find moisture down in the soil at a greater depth than the cereals, so that's why it used to be such a problem years ago. And the borage as well is nearly finished flowering. You can look down and on this margin here, there appears to be more borage, but once you look out in the field, it's all over the field, and there's still some plants to come into flower as well. They're not yet out. There's lots and lots of sunflowers out here, and they'll be yielding. They seem to be able to withstand the heat more than many of the other species. Again, quite deep-rooted. And so they'll be yielding some pollen and nectar in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. And that's the secret for looking after the adult butterflies. But of course, there's 3 other stages as well, which are all equally as important. The first one is the food plant, where the egg's laid on, and then obviously the eggs hatch out, and we'll be visiting the patch of nettles and follow the rest of the life cycle. In many ways, it's the most important stage for the butterfly. Having said that, all the stages, the 4 stages, are hugely important. But it's really spectacular to see them like this. We might be able to walk up to that one there. It's slightly different. Oh, it's going to come in right closer.
There we are.
Can you see?
There's a spot.
Yeah, there's a spot, but the wing, the forewing underneath, is green. That's a green veined white. There we are. So, yeah, another. It's really confusing because to start with, it just looks like a small white. That's a small white there. So, lacking that green on the underside of the wing. Can you see it? It's quite noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we are, right next to us.
Just a couple of feet away.
Yes, yeah.
6 spot burnets as well.
Yes, yeah.
Meadow brown, all the other whites as well.
Bumblebee on the thistle. So,
Peacock.
Yeah, so that's it. So again, we're providing food for the adult sort of stage of the life of the butterfly, and that some of them will lay eggs again.
And this creature reminds me of something I experienced the other day.
Oh.
Went to the seaside at Yarmouth,
Right.
walking on the front at Galston, and there was an eruption of ladybirds.
Oh, right.
They were everywhere. You couldn't
from the
sit out.
continent.
Is that what happens?
Yes, they can come across the North Sea. It's insects. Some of our butterfly species will come up. The sort of summer visiting one, many of them will be not native to our country. I already mentioned the painted ladies, but there are other species that will come up in hot weather to kind of avoid it, and so you have a whole variety to look out for. You almost need a butterfly book, but compared to the number of moth species, butterflies hardly figure at all. There's perhaps only 40 odd species that you're likely to see in the UK, maybe a bit more, and many of the moth species number their thousands, so there we are. And I can't see any of the peacock butterflies here because they normally stand out here on the thistles. So I'm looking down the margin to look for these very dark triangles, because when their wings are shut, it just looks like a dried up leaf on the top of the plant. But nevertheless, we'll carry on, and we'll go and give you your treat, visiting a nettle patch.
What have you seen, Chris?
Matthew, brimstone butterfly.
Oh, lovely lime green.
We're just on our way to the nettle patch, your treat for the day, and we're driving past the teasels on the farm. The teasel walk is now open. It's right on the edge of what we call barnwood, and it's all about 6 feet tall. And there it is. It's a male brimstone butterfly.
He's a biggie as well.
That's the first butterfly that you're likely to see each year. It's called brimstone because it's the old name for sulphur, which is sort of bright yellow, really. And they're almost unique because they are winter hibernators as well. So they fold up their wings, but they don't hibernate in old log sheds or tree stumps and things like that, in log piles or in bedrooms. They hibernate in ivy, and to help them in hibernation, their wing shape mirrors an ivy leaf. It's got little points on the wings, absolutely extraordinary. Their food plant is buckthorn. There is some buckthorn on High Ash Farm, but nevertheless they are what you would probably... It's probably the insect that has given butterflies their name, because it looks like butter flying, if you like. And so the male is that quite deep yellow colour, and the female is much whiter, and you could mistake the female for...
I'm just catching a glimpse there.
There
they
he
are,
is,
flying over.
Yeah, right over the top there. And the female's much paler white, it's almost creamy white almost, and you could mistake it for a large white butterfly. Some people do, but without a mistake, what we're just seeing is the summer version of that, the brimstone butterfly. Now, they only have one brood a year, and that will hibernate over this autumn, so it'll spend 6 months or so fast asleep. October, November, December, January, February, and in February they will sometimes fly, but more often their first flight's in early March. So 6 months asleep, and then they're on the wing looking for mates, and they're the first butterflies you like to see each year. That was a real treat, and we said we'd been looking at summer butterflies. I did not expect that. Oh, the truck's starting and stopping itself of its own will now, so we'll just drive on a bit. We've got teasels taller than the truck.
This is a great crop, isn't it?
It's 6-7 feet tall here, and anybody who's interested in photography, you can walk here and you've got the butterflies right next to you at eye height. It's a lovely sunny, well, it's almost too sunny today, but nevertheless they're feeding on the teasels, which will be in flower for about another 10 days only, and then they'll go over quite quickly. But lots of them, and they're doing mating flights. We've got peacock butterflies in front of us, lots of them. Wow, look, it's almost a cloud of them, a flutterby happening. God, absolutely great. So he's really spoiled. We're just driving slowly because they're flying all around the truck as we drive through. There we are. There's an extra little treat on the way down to our nettle patch.
We're on one of the wide walkways through the middle of the farm here that's very popular with people going for a walk. Even on a day like today, there are people sticking to the shade, but here we are, mad dogs and Englishmen in the sun.
It's not even midday sun yet, but I thought we'd just stop here for a moment because all over the farm I get more questions about this particular plant as to what on earth is it. It's 6 feet tall. It's got bright blue daisy-like flowers on it, and the petals, the flowers all drop off around lunchtime each day, and then you have a fresh set coming the next morning, bright and early. And this is right by one of the permissive walks here. Absolutely stunning display with thousands of chicory plants in full flower.
Chicory, the lovely blue colour of the
yes,
flower.
Yes, it is, yes. And so there's a big sign here I've popped up to just explain, to help quell the number of questions I get about it. It is a bit of a mystery if you've never seen it before, but many of our older listeners will be acquainted with chicory because it's quite bitter. The root that you can dig up is got a bitterness to it, and various parts of the stalk and the leaves as well, and it used to be added to coffee, and there was a particular coffee brand called Camp Coffee with added chicory on the front, and it just added some sort of bite to the coffee. That's my memory of it.
My grandparents loved that.
Yes.
I must say. I mean, it wouldn't be too many modern tastes, but you can still get it.
Yeah, you certainly can, yes. It's still purchasable, and you can see the plants down here. Some will still come into flower, but these ones, well, you can only call it spectacular. The flowers look like a daisy, actually, the same flower shape. They're about 1.5 inches across, about 40 millimetres diameter. Bright, bright blue, sort of cornflower blue, I suppose you'd call it. And it really loves the base of these valleys, so it's all round the farm, close to the permissive walks. Clumps of it. In this case, it's quite a large patch here with over 1,000 flowers there. And what does happen is the deer absolutely love it because it's got some rich leaves that are often added to salads. And you can see them down here. You can also dig up the roots as well if you grow it in your garden. So it's often used as a vegetable as well. So it had lots of history and did used to be grown commercially as well for adding to, as a coffee substitute, I suppose we'd call it.
We're talking about the wartime generation.
Yes,
there, really,
I suppose so, yes. But nevertheless, I'm growing it for a completely different reason. It puts itself here. It seeds quite freely. The seeds spread along the margins here by themselves, so I don't do any attention to it. And the long flowering period means that it's fantastic for bumblebees. The deer love it. And then the seeds drop on the ground, and I'll often see birds like greenfinches actually feeding where these clumps of chicory have been growing, and they seem to relish the seed as well. So yeah, it's quite a welcome plant here at the farm, and really, really beautiful. Small white just fluttering through, just looking to feast on some of the nectar. And because it's a deep-rooted plant, the taproot goes down quite some way. It doesn't seem to suffer from these drought conditions that we have here at the moment in the eastern counties. So there we are, a little added bonus for you, Matthew. Chicory. Have you seen that before? Have you seen it in
I
flower?
think I do remember seeing the flowers, but not necessarily knowing what it was.
Yes.
And being aware of chicory.
Yes.
There was a 70s pop band called
yes.
Chicory Tip.
There was, yes. Son of my father, I think.
Yeah, you get the 5 points.
Yes. There we are.
Yeah,
Lovely.
but chicory coffee from earlier generations.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
But I never liked the taste.
No, I didn't mind it, but I wasn't really a coffee drinker back in my teenage years. And there we are, there's a pink version of it there, just an individual plant, and occasionally you'll have white, pure white flowered chicory as well.
Tiny little butterfly look.
Yes.
What is that? Is that a meadow brown as well? It's got 2 eyes, that one.
Oh no, it's a small copper. Oh, look at that. Yeah, tiny little 1 centimetre wingspan each wing, so a total of 2 centimetres. Well spotted. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And you'll have these sort of brown butterflies all the way down this margin. As I said, if you love photography, there's willow herb here growing, bright pink, and further down here, wild carrot growing in the margin as well, with the sort of white tops to it. It looks rather like hogweed, but it isn't. It's called wild carrot, a relation of the cultivated variety that we all love and enjoy.
Oh, can we stay in this little gap between hedges all day?
Yes, look at that, a lovely cooling breeze. We've got the latent heat of evaporation, we call that.
Rat's been left in the van because he sometimes starts arguments with rivals who are much bigger than him.
Yes, this is called Burnt House Meadow, Matthew. It's 5 acres, and 1 acre of it is stinging nettles, and there's 2 horses reside in this half of the field, and they aren't too keen on rat, or rat's not too keen on them, so they'll often chase each other about the field, and it's a little bit hair-raising, to say the least. Right, now, I often get praise for the podcast and my interest in nature, but also I get criticism as well, and I don't mind either. I try and explain the reasons why I do things, and here's one of the opportunities. You can see nettles in the background there, and they're a good shoulder high. They're tall. They're now finishing their life cycle. We're middle of July, and the heat is sort of sending them off. But about 4 weeks ago, I came in here with a mower, with a mulching deck on, and I mowed half this 1 acre patch of nettles right down to the ground. They've then regrown, so we have young and tender nettles right in front of us. Not much, well, they're not knee high yet, and that's the ideal food. So often when we talk about butterflies and you look them up in a butterfly book, you will see food plant. Now that's really confusing for many people. You would often think it's the buddleia that you grow in your garden or your Michaelmas daisies, but it isn't. The food plant is the plant that the caterpillars, after the eggs that laid by the butterflies on their food plant, they actually hatch. It's what the caterpillars feed on, and it's a crucial part of their life cycle. Now, there's a small patch that I mown here before we get to the big patch over there, and this is about living room size, I suppose. And early this week I came down here and there was some nettle plants right out in the middle here which were completely defoliated, and you can see the leaves, well, there's virtually nothing left. There was a silk cocoon here, and when I looked inside the cocoon, it was alive with greenish, blackish little caterpillars, all writhing and sort of trying to sort of put me off opening the mesh up, which I didn't do. Their little cocoon, it was, the eggs had hatched, the eggs had been laid by a small tortoiseshell butterfly, and they were on the underside of the nettle leaves, their food plant. They then hatched out and they were munching nettles for breakfast, nettles for lunch, nettles for supper. And they grew and grew and grew, and then they spread out into this surrounding area. So you can see a little bare patch. They've eaten some of the nettles right down to the ground, and they've spread out, and I was hoping when I brought you here we'd see some of the caterpillars, but because of the warm weather they've gone through the life cycle incredibly quickly. So I came down at 6 this morning and I found 2 just about ready to pupate. They'll drop down either onto the ground or make a little cocoon, a chrysalis in other words, on the underside of nettle leaves, and that's why we've got young nettles here. So it's the ideal habitat for many of the butterfly species. This is their food plant. I notice you're not walking into the butterfly patch. Oh, right, red admiral has just come in. Wow, look at that, and it's viewing up these short nettles. Look, it's flown into the tall nettle patch and it's come back out again. Absolutely amazing. And this is the food plant for the red admiral butterfly. You notice the more spectacular butterfly species have these kind of flamboyant names. Red admiral, it's actually a derivation of admirable, meaning really sort of view-worthy, if you like. And peacock butterfly, brimstone as well. They're what the early entomologists gave the most sort of flamboyant names. So if I just walk in, I may be lucky. If you can come in a little bit, I hope you won't get stung, because they're fully armed, these nettles. And I did, when I came in earlier, I left a little marker here because there was one caterpillar left and it's now gone down into the crop because either the heat of the sun has forced it in to the nettles, and it's now not visible, and it was munching away. Isn't that sad? I was actually going to show you how it all works, but it's happened so quickly, and that's typical this year. We're going through everything's life cycle at a great rate of knots. So what they do though, once they're ready to pupate, is they make a little cocoon from the leaf. They'll often fold the leaf over and pupate inside that, and sometimes they hang upside down on a little thread on the underside of the food plant, and that's the third stage of their life once they've gone into chrysalis form. So it's an amazing process that our butterflies go through. First of all, the egg stage, which is laid on their food plant, then the caterpillar stage, then the chrysalis, and then the metamorphosis happens, which just literally means a complete and utter change into the adult flying butterfly. And so really, I've just seen something over here. Is that a chrysalis? Let's have a look. Oh no, it was a bush cricket. Hanging up that just jumped off.
And they like these young nettles because they're more tender than these
absolutely.
rather more leggy ones.
Yes, that's right. So it's just the right stage, because things like small tortoiseshell, the larger species, have longer to grow. It takes them longer. Look there, it's just on the tip of my finger.
Oh, yeah. It's
Little
a grasshopper.
Grasshopper, green grasshopper.
Oh, beauty.
Yes. So things like a peacock butterfly is much larger than the small tortoiseshell, so they just have one brood a year. But the small tortoiseshell, which we had here, which is now all pupating, has two broods in a year. The first one, these caterpillars are the summer brood. They will then pupate and hatch out into an autumn brood, and it's the autumn brood which will overwinter as an adult. So it gets a little bit complex sometimes, but nevertheless it's a fantastic food plant, and you can see exactly where I mowed over here, and there'll be other butterflies coming in and laying on these young stinging nettles, and it's the perfect food plant for them.
So to start at the beginning, you said people criticise you for
cutting nettles because it's the food plant, but I want to encourage this brood, the summer brood of butterflies that now lay their eggs at this time of the year. And so if I mow early, before the eggs have been laid on the butterflies, on the plants I should say, then it works a dream, and that's exactly what's happened here. And I can still see that red admiral just flirting around the patch of nettles just over there in the distance. It's just trying to find the right plant to lay its eggs on. It's probably a female. It's been mated and fertilised, so it's ready to lay its eggs for... There it is, just flittering around in the background. Can you see? Just going down in the nettle patch. There it is, gone into one of my mown patches. Absolutely perfect. There we are. So a little bit of a life cycle of our summer butterflies. So hope I've explained it as best I can. Gets a little bit complex. Let's just walk over here and see if we can catch her laying her eggs.
By the way, Rat's horsey friends seem to enjoy our presence. They're having a good munch of grass as we walk across here where he was last seen.
She's in here somewhere. And the mown patch, really quite difficult to see once they close their wings, but she's here within a foot or two of us. There we are. That's the beauty of butterflies. They're well camouflaged when they've got their wings closed.
Billing and cooing, the pigeons of High Ash Farm. Among the cast of characters that we meet each week.
And I'm the next character that you're likely to meet on the Countryside podcast. And we've got a small favour to ask. There are certain costs involved which we can't avoid. What we're asking for is a small contribution to help the running costs of this podcast.
And you can find all the details on the High Ash Farm website. and you can make a monthly or one-off payment. Everything's gratefully received, and let's keep this marvellous slice of wildlife podcasting going with Chris Skinner and the pigeons.
Why not? Yes, it's absolutely fantastic.
We're under a tree for this last bit of the podcast, and a big thank you to everyone who's emailed in over the weeks and some lovely comments about Chris and the podcast. So it's always marvellous to hear from you, and thanks as well to donors who have contributed so much to the production costs here. And if you're interested in becoming a donor, just log on to the High Ash Farm website and click onto the podcast, and that'll give you some more details about how you can help us out. In the meantime, though, a selection of the emails here, Chris. Tina says, whilst out on a woodland walk with the Labradors, we spotted this. I believe it to be an emerging brimstone. I would like your opinion, please. Nature at moment in time. Happy haymaking this week, she says, by the way.
Yeah, exactly that. You've got a male brimstone, and remember, we encountered one on this week's podcast purely by accident. This one is just emerged. It looks as though it's on thistle head, and you can actually see the little points on the wings. There's one, and it mimics an ivy leaf where it spends the winter, and also the veins on the underside of the wings.
That
just
is uncanny.
Absolutely amazing.
That's millions of years of
development,
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and that's why we're standing under a tree here at the farm, one of the hundreds and hundreds of oak trees covered in ivy, and it's to help butterfly species like that which use it to hibernate in as well. So thank you very much, Tina.
Here's a question from Chris. With High Ash Farm, farming with wildlife in mind, is it such a good idea for the mowing to be done at a fast speed? Surely at this speed, you will not give any wildlife in the grass a chance to escape.
Yep, that's a really relevant point, and I take your point. What we do is start mowing in the middle of the field, so any of the large mammals have a chance to move out of the way. But for the small mammals, things like field voles, long-tailed field mice in particular, there's a sort of chance that they will be either run over by the tractor wheels. Remember, modern agricultural machinery from 30, 40 years ago is now completely different. We now use disc mowers, and you need quite a forward speed for the hay to fall over the top of the disc and come out of the back of the mower. Some of the mowers also have conditioners on them which gently bruise the hay to let the moisture out. So there's a complete change in agricultural machinery, and everything is done at high speed. Sadly, and much against my judgment and will, but remember when I was born, there were 31 full-time workers on this area of farm. Now we just have one full-time employee, and Daniel and myself sort of work as best we can, but it's changed completely, as has modern agriculture.
Here's a photograph from Tina of some fungi. Whilst out during a warm evening dog walk, this 6-inch diameter fungus was bright as a button, shone through a mown edge of a blackcurrant fruit farm field. Couldn't help thinking it's yummy sliced and fried, but I resisted. I mean, that's a marvellous mushroom.
It is,
that,
absolutely.
isn't it? 6 inches.
Without a doubt, it's what's called a horse mushroom. You can actually look it up. It's Agaricus arvensis, so it's a field mushroom, and it's in many of the popular fungi books. So
wrong time of year, though, isn't
it's
it?
quite common. No, because we had an early heat wave, and then in parts of the country, and I don't know which part this is actually from, they've had quite a lot of thunderstorms on the warm ground, and that's ideal conditions for the mycelium in the soil to actually produce a fruiting body, of which this is. So it's not a large piebald mushroom. So without a doubt, it's what we call a horse mushroom, big enough for a horse's hoof, in other words. So
You'll be delighted to hear, Chris, I just looked down at the irritation on the palm of my hand.
that was me, was it?
No, there was a fly on there. I brushed it away, and look what's left behind.
Yes, a pool of blood. So it was one of the farm's mosquitoes. So that will be fine. Just look up there above our heads, Matthew. One buzzard there, another one there, and one right up above the top of them. So I'm sorry you've been punctured, but it's a very lucky female horsefly.
It's not a mosquito.
Well, yes, you can call them mosquitoes. We call them horseflies here at the farm because they absolutely plague the horses. And suddenly you'll see one of the horses racing round a field with its tail in the air, trying to leave this pesky mosquito, or horseflies as we call them, behind. And they do take a quick bite out of you. If you're out walking, that's the most likely one. I call them dainty feet because they land on you and you can't actually feel them there until they've had their fill of good old Gudgin's blood. So this one will produce lots of youngsters.
Pint, it's very nearly an armful. No, I mean, I suppose, it's not malarial round here, but I might just have a gin and tonic at lunchtime with that quinine.
Yes. Oh, dear.
Chris says, at this time of the year, the rookery at the bottom of my garden starts to become very active just before sunset. All the adult rooks and the young start an evening flight across the wood and are joined by adult and young jackdaws. Presumably, the jackdaws will roost in the wood alongside the rooks. This massive, noisy flight is then the signal for me to look towards my neighbour's house roof to watch a colony of pipistrelle bats.
I was doing exactly the same thing 2 nights ago. It was about 9:45 in the evening, and I was looking up at the old farmhouse where I was born and raised, and out from under the soffits where the gutter is came about 30 pipistrelle bats. Absolutely lovely sight. And we've just driven through one of the woodlands at High Ash Farm, Matthew, and the understory was peppered white with what we call whitewash from the rooks and the jackdaws that are now started communal roosting in the woodland at about 9 o'clock each evening. It's a wonderful sight to see them all diving in there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for that. And Mark has sent an email. Love the podcast. Always feel so motivated by it. I work on a 6-acre organic farm near Kendal in Cumbria. I've introduced strips of flowers on the edge of each of our growing plots to attract pollinator and beneficial insects. I usually use either phacelia or buckwheat, sometimes Cotswold seeds annual beneficial mix, which has a mixture of different flowers, including corn cockles, coriander and cornflowers. I was just wondering if you have any other suggestions.
Yes, I certainly have. Right, maybe to add into that mix, to save you some of the work, put in some perennials. The phacelia you can actually leave until it's seeded. The seed then drops on the ground and you'll have a second crop. It can overwinter unless we have really hard frost. But maybe you can add some more hardy perennials in there, things like sandfoin, clover, and if the pH is above 6.5, just need to check the lime content. And there's a picture of some of the phacelia growing on the margins there. Well done. That's a really wildlife-friendly garden.
The farm is called Growing Well, an organic farm and mental health charity.
Yes, absolutely excellent. Thank you, Mark. It's Mark Hurrell has sent us that. So brilliant. Well done.
The Barrett family in Hertfordshire. We have a small holding, good variety of wildlife, including swallows. This year, 4 of the 7 that left us last year have returned, but are being plagued by magpies. The swallows are nesting on one of the tube lights in a stable. Easy pickings for the magpies. Like you, we're all in favour of letting nature take its course, but year after year, the swallows do have a distinct disadvantage over the magpies, who simply watch where they fly into and eat the eggs and chicks.
I have exactly the same problem here at the farm, but not with magpies, with a resident pair of little owl, which actually raid the stable block, and the swallows go absolutely frantic. It happens early evening, but magpies are really difficult to deter. I haven't got an easy answer for you on that one. It's just predation. I suppose the only other way of doing it is trying to control the magpies themselves. There are special traps which I don't really approve of. They're called Larsen traps, and you can actually catch them in there, and that reduces the local population. So.
One of the questions just blown away.
Yes, we got a nice fresh breeze just coming down the edge of the hedge here.
Very welcome. Oh, here's another one about swallows. Jennifer says, I've put up a swallow nesting cup in my stable, not used during the summer as my donkeys live out. I'm thrilled a pair of swallows have nested and raised 4 young. I found 2 fledglings on the floor, so I put them back as I read that they need to be in there to fly and the parents wouldn't feed them on the floor. I've since found 2 of the fledglings on the floor dead. It is heartbreaking. Is there anything I can do in the future to help the swallows be more successful?
Well, it's almost certainly caused by what we call bailout, as the sheer summer heat, and it's happened here at the farm. In places, back at the stable yard, I've used a double roof, but you can do small sections above the nest to help keep the temperature down inside. But these temperatures of 30 degrees centigrade plus means that it can be 50 Celsius inside the building, and that's just too much for the young swallows to survive, and so they bail out, just trying to keep cool as a kind of defence mechanism, and usually meet their death on the way down.
So extra insulation above where the nest is?
Yes, you can do insulation on the inside of the building to help, because a lot of it's radiant heat coming off, particularly if it's corrugated iron. It's just intensely hot in there, but there's no easy answer, and that's why I took the bull by the horns and did a double roof on the susceptible buildings back at the farm.
Emma lives in Nettle, which is a few miles just in that direction, isn't it? I enjoyed your foxglove spires episode recently. Thought you might like to see this flower crab spider we caught a photograph of in late May. There was a bumblebee hanging from a foxglove bell, and on nudging slightly with a stick, we found the culprit. The spider was still there the next morning, having got what it needed from the bee overnight, I guess. Natural, yet vicious.
Yes, just look at that. And there's the crab spider actually feasting. It's actually imbibing the juices of the bumblebee. It looks really gruesome, and it's offset by the beauty of a foxglove flower, but nevertheless, that's nature, as they say. It's sort of raw, isn't it? And quite brutal sometimes when you see these things. But well done for capturing that moment, and brilliant. Thank you, everybody who sent questions in this week.
Keep the photos, the comments, questions, keep them all coming in, please. It's wonderful to receive them. chris@highashfarm.com. Time for me to clear off now, I think,
yes,
Chris.
See you again next week, Matthew, if we both haven't melted by then. But yes, well, this is high summer, and this is what you expect. But it's a little bit too hot, even for the toughest of us.
Dare we say too darn hot?
Yeah, we could do, yes.